He was just a homeless kid in an old hoodie, ignored by everyone. But when he shouted, "Don't eat that," a billionaire's life stopped mid-spoon. No one expected what came next. Not the poison, not the arrest, and definitely not the offer that would change the boy's life forever. The Parkstone Cafe didn't serve regulars. It curated them, tucked between marble statues and a whispering fountain. Its sunlit patio gleamed with polished stone, linen tablecloths, and glasses that caught the light just right. Conversations here never rose above a certain pitch. Laughter was quiet. Power was loud, but only in who listened when you spoke. At the center table, Bernard Green sat with the weight of 72 years and the presence of a man who had built his fortune brick by brick. Real estate, tech, media, his fingerprints were on half the city. His suit was dark, expensive, tailored like armor. Gold-rimmed glasses rested perfectly on the bridge of his nose, but his shoulders drooped just slightly, as if something deeper than money was pressing down. Across from him sat Marissa. You couldn't miss her. A sculpted kind of beauty, magazine gloss perfect. Her lips were red, deliberate. A diamond bracelet clinked softly as she swiped her phone, only half listening. Her dress shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Expensive, immaculately fitted, but more statement than sentiment. When she looked up, her smile landed a second too late. "You always choose the best tables," she said sweetly. Bernard offered a tired smile. Habit. Behind the fence that bordered the patio, just far enough to be out of frame, a boy stood quietly, watching. He blended in with the shadows cast by the sycamores. Small for his age, hoodie too big, sleeves frayed at the edges. His shoes didn't match. His hair was matted at the back. But his eyes were sharp, focused. Malik had been coming here for days. Not to beg, not to steal, just to be near the food, near the warmth. Sometimes people left behind croissants or crusts. Sometimes a waiter dropped something. That was enough. Today felt no different, until it was. He saw them first. Bernard, old and regal. Marissa, young and polished. They didn't look at each other much. She smiled at her phone more than her husband. He stirred his water more than he spoke. Malik's stomach growled, but he didn't move. He watched. The soup arrived. White bowl, green garnish, steam curling upward like a signal. Bernard didn't touch it. Not yet. His phone buzzed, and he glanced down. Just for a moment. That's when Malik noticed Marissa's hand. Quick, smooth. It dipped into her handbag, then came out with something small. A bottle, clear. Her fingers turned like she'd done it 100 times. Just a tilt, just a drop. It vanished into the soup. She stirred once, smiled, rested her chin on her palm, like nothing had happened. Malik blinked, then blinked again. No one else saw it. But he did. Marissa tilted her head and laughed. Soft, graceful, effortless. It danced just above the cafe's hum, the kind of laugh that made people glance over, admiring without knowing why. But to Malik, it didn't sound real. It was too perfect, like it had been practiced. She leaned in slightly, her hand reaching across the table to touch Bernard's wrist. The diamond bracelet slid down her arm, catching the light with a sharp glint. Her fingers were delicate, polished, but they didn't linger. They landed, then pulled back. Like touching him was part of the performance, not the connection. "You work too much," she said, lips curling into a smile that looked like it belonged to someone else. "Even here you're somewhere else." Bernard didn't look up from his phone. "You knew who I was when we met," he replied, voice even. "This isn't new." Malik watched from the fence, eyes narrowing. There was something in the way she blinked after Bernard spoke. A flicker, not hurt, not love, something colder, like she was measuring him. She glanced at her phone again, tapping the screen 3 times in quick succession, then locked it and tucked it into her clutch. Her smile returned instantly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Not once. Malik noticed. Most people wouldn't. They'd see her beauty, her composure, her effortless charm. But Malik had lived on streets where pretending was survival. He'd seen smiles used like knives. He'd seen eyes that didn't match mouths, and hers were the same. She sat with the ease of someone used to power, but every movement was tight, controlled. Even when she sipped her drink, her fingers barely curled around the stem of the glass. Elegant, posed, tense. She kept looking at Bernard, like she wanted him to say something, do something, but he didn't. He was distracted, scrolling through emails or messages. Whatever it was, it didn't include her. Malik leaned forward, resting his arms on the fence rail. He wasn't watching for food anymore. He was watching her. Every move she made seemed off, too smooth, too timed. Then she looked around, once to the left, once to the right, not casual glances. Checks, like someone about to cross a street, but without stepping into traffic. She smiled again, wide this time, and reached for the soup. Her hand brushed the spoon. Her eyes flicked toward Bernard, then back down. Something about it made the hair on Malik's arms stand up. She wasn't just cold. She was waiting, and whatever she was waiting for, it wasn't love. Malik pressed a hand to his stomach as it growled again, loud enough that he flinched. He scanned the patio quickly, but no one noticed. No one ever did, just another kid in a hoodie, leaning against a fence that might as well have been a wall between worlds. The smell was unbearable: roasted garlic, melted butter, soup that steamed with herbs he couldn't name. His mouth watered, but he didn't move. Not yet. He'd learned that patience was safer than begging. The waiters here didn't yell, but they didn't need to. Their glances were sharper than words. He watched the table again. The soup had been set down minutes ago, untouched. Perfect. White bowl, thick green broth, flecks of something floating like it had been painted. It was the kind of food Malik only ever saw behind glass or in dreams. Bernard scrolled on his phone. Marissa rested her elbow on the table, her chin on her palm. She looked bored. Her gaze flicked toward the fountain. Her fingers tapped the edge of her plate. Once, twice, then it happened. Her hand dipped into her purse with a practiced ease. Smooth. No hesitation. She pulled out something small, no bigger than a lipstick. Clear, glass. Malik squinted. It caught the sunlight for only a second, then disappeared beneath the shadow of her hand. She twisted the cap with a flick of her wrist, then tilted. One drop. Maybe two. No more than that. The liquid vanished the instant it touched the soup. No color, no ripple. It was as if it had never been there. She stirred once, slowly, and placed the spoon beside the bowl like it had all been innocent. Malik blinked. His breath caught. Did he just see that? Bernard looked up, adjusting his glasses. He said something, but Malik didn't hear. Blood was pounding in his ears now. He replayed it in his mind. Her hand, the bottle, the pour. He hadn't imagined it. He knew what he saw. She smiled at Bernard, then the way people smile when they know something you don't. Her hand reached across the table again, resting on his like before, but now it felt wrong. Like a spider settling on its web. Malik's feet itched to move, but his body stayed rooted. His mind screamed for reason. Maybe it was medicine, maybe it was nothing, but his gut said otherwise. A gut that had kept him alive in alleyways, on sidewalks, in shelters where trust was the most dangerous thing you could carry. No one else saw it, but he did, and the man across the table was about to take a bite. Marissa leaned in, her hand still resting lightly on Bernard's wrist, her posture unchanged, but her lips moved, softly, deliberately, just enough for the words to slip beneath the hum of silverware and soft jazz trickling from hidden speakers. "After all the trouble I've gone through," she said, her voice like silk wrapped around a blade, "you won't ruin this now." Malik felt the words slice through him like cold air. His grip tightened on the iron patio railing. He wasn't close enough to hear every word clearly, but he heard enough. The tone, the edge, the way she said this like it meant something more. Across the patio, nothing changed. Waiters moved like dancers between tables. A man in a blue blazer chuckled over espresso. A woman in pearls snapped a photo of her dessert. Laughter rippled from a far corner, oblivious to the storm quietly brewing at the cafe's heart. Malik's heart beat faster. He glanced around, hoping someone else had noticed anything, but no one was watching. No heads turned, no brows furrowed. It was as if he was the only one who existed outside the script. He looked back at the table. Bernard, still unaware, was reading a message on his phone. One hand hovered near the spoon. The other rested lightly beside the soup, inches from the truth he didn't see coming. And Marissa, she was still smiling. Malik couldn't make sense of it. Her beauty was intact, her hair immaculate. Her voice when she spoke again was warm, playful even. You should eat before it gets cold, she cooed, nudging the spoon slightly toward him. His fingers twitched against the fence. Everything inside him screamed that something was wrong. That look in her eyes, the coldness behind the charm, that drop from the bottle, the whispered threat. He had seen it, felt it, even if no one else had. Malik's mind whirled. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't see what I thought I did. But that didn't sit right. Not in his gut. Not after all the nights he'd survived by listening to that exact feeling. Bernard lifted the spoon. Malik's breath hitched. He didn't know this man. Didn't owe him anything. He could walk away, knelt back into the street, like he'd done 100 times. Let the moment pass. Let the silence win. But as that spoon neared Bernard's lips, Malik's chest tightened like a fist. He couldn't walk away. Not this time. He saw something no one else had. And he knew, whatever happened next, he would carry it forever. The spoon hovered mid-air. Steam curled from the bowl, rising in delicate tendrils toward Bernard's face. He didn't seem to notice. His eyes were fixed on his phone, thumb scrolling slowly. His attention split between worlds. Malik stood frozen behind the iron fence, every muscle locked tight, his hands clenched at his sides, nails biting into skin. His heart pounded like it was trying to warn him. Do something. But his mind screamed back. Don't. Who would believe him? He was just a kid in a dirty hoodie, just a shadow on the edge of fine linen and quiet jazz. He didn't belong here. Not at the Parkstone Cafe. Not among people who tipped more than he ate in a week. And if he spoke up, if he accused someone like her, what then? They'd laugh. Maybe worse. They'd call someone, a manager, the cops. And when they asked for ID, for proof, for a reason he was even here, what would he say? But he saw it. He knew. And Bernard didn't. The man's hand began to move again, spoon drifting toward his mouth with slow finality. Marissa watched him closely, the corners of her lips curved upward, her eyes cool and steady. She didn't blink. Malik's breath caught, and in that one stretched second, something inside him snapped loose. He pushed off the fence, stepped forward, opened his mouth. Don't eat that. His voice cracked but rang loud across the patio, like a bell. No one expected. Heads turned. Forks froze. The clatter of a dropped knife broke the stunned silence. Bernard looked up, startled. Spoon halted just inches from his mouth. His eyes met Malik's across the space, confusion flickering behind the glasses. Marissa's head whipped around, her expression flattening into something hard and razor-sharp. Excuse me, she snapped, loud enough for everyone to hear. Malik didn't flinch. She put something in your soup, he said, louder now. I saw her. Every table around them stilled. A ripple passed through the air, uneasy, electric. Marissa rose from her seat, voice syrupy and sharp. Who even are you? What are you talking about? But Bernard didn't speak. He stared at Malik, really looked at him, at the panic beneath the boy's voice, the sweat on his brow, the way his chest heaved like it cost him everything to say it out loud. Malik took one shaky step closer to the patio edge. I swear, he said, softer this time, but steadier. She poured something in your soup, while you were looking at your phone. Please, don't eat it. Silence. Then Bernard slowly lowered the spoon, set it down. The table didn't move. Neither did Marissa. But the moment had. Malik had crossed a line, and now, there was no going back. For a moment, no one breathed. The sound of fountains faded. The clink of glass vanished. Even the birds above seemed to pause mid-flight. All eyes turned to the boy, standing at the edge of the patio, one hand still clenched, his hoodie hanging loosely from his frame like armor, too big for its wearer. His chest rose and fell fast, but his eyes didn't leave Bernard. Marissa broke the silence first. You little liar, she hissed, stepping forward, voice tight and venom-laced. Who let you in here? What are you even doing? She turned toward the nearest waiter, her expression a perfect storm of offense and authority. Is no one watching the fence? He's clearly trying to scam someone. But Malik didn't retreat. He didn't even blink. I'm not lying, he said, his voice trembling but clear. You had a small glass bottle in your purse. You opened it and poured it in while he wasn't looking. I saw it. Bernard's eyes shifted slowly to his wife. She forced a laugh. Loud, too loud. He's making this up. This is ridiculous. Probably wants money, or a free meal. Her diamond bracelet clinked again, as she crossed her arms, her mouth tight with disdain. Look at him, she sneered, gesturing. He's not even supposed to be here. Still, Malik didn't back away. You can check his soup, he said. Now louder, almost pleading. Smell it, test it, call someone, but please don't eat it. Bernard didn't speak. Not yet. His spoon still rested on the table. His eyes, though, were fixed on Marissa. And something had shifted, small but certain, a crack in the trust. Marissa stepped closer to him, her voice softening, as if smoothing over a wrinkle. He's just a kid, Bernard. He probably imagined something, or maybe he saw someone else. Come on, let's not do this. But Malik interrupted her. I saw you. His voice rose. You stirred it afterward. You looked around first, like you didn't want anyone to see. But I did. The cafe murmured now. Conversations forgotten. Phones slipped onto table edges. Patrons leaned slightly forward. Marissa turned sharply toward them, her poise starting to fracture. This is insane, she snapped. You're all really going to listen to him? But Bernard didn't answer her. He turned to Malik, his voice low. You're sure? Malik nodded. Yes, sir. Marissa's voice cracked then, just slightly. Bernard. He held up a hand. The tension tightened around the table, like a wire pulled too far. And in that fragile pause, between denial and belief, silence and truth, Malik stood tall. Not because he was fearless, but because what he'd seen couldn't stay quiet. Bernard's fingers curled around the edge of the table, knuckles pale against the crisp linen. He stared down at the bowl of soup, untouched, steaming, and suddenly monstrous. A moment ago it had been lunch. Now it was a question mark. A threat, a test of trust. Across from him, Marissa held her pose, one hand on her hip, the other pressed gently to her chest, like she was the one under attack. Bernard, she said softly, like his name was fragile. You know me. But that was the problem. Did he? He looked at her, really looked at her. Her eyes flickered just a little too fast. Her smile held steady, but the corners trembled, stretched thin. He'd known her for years, known the way she kissed his cheek without touching his heart, the way she listened without hearing, the way she loved, on schedule. And then he looked at the boy. Malik stood like he'd been carved from cement, small, rigid, shaking. But his eyes were steady, honest, raw, not the kind of gaze that knew how to lie. He couldn't have been more than 14. His hoodie was threadbare, the hem curling, sleeves too long. His sneakers were mismatched, one laced with a strip of twine. He looked like a kid life had stepped on, but he didn't flinch, not under the weight of Marissa's glare, not under the weight of Bernard's silence. Why would he lie? Bernard murmured aloud, not to anyone in particular. His voice was hoarse, like it hadn't been used for something real in a long time. Marissa stepped forward, her heels clicking sharp on the stone patio. Because he wants something, she said. Money, food, attention. This is what these kids do. They create drama. Malik didn't speak. He just stood there, chest rising and falling, jaw clenched, and Bernard couldn't look away from him. You said you saw a bottle, Bernard said slowly. Malik nodded. Clear, small, like medicine. She poured it in when you weren't looking, then stirred it, like nothing happened. A beat passed, then another. The cafe had gone still. Waiters froze in doorways. Patrons leaned in, pretending to sip their drinks, their eyes locked on the scene. Somewhere near the fountain, a spoon dropped to a saucer, with a quiet final clink. Bernard's eyes flicked back to Marissa. Do you have a bottle in your purse? She laughed, but it was dry, fractured. You can't be serious. Do you? Her hand tightened on the strap. Bernard. He looked down again at the soup, then at the spoon, and for the first time in his life, he didn't trust the woman sitting across from him. Not completely, not anymore. The silence fractured into whispers. She looked nervous. I think the boy's telling the truth. Did you see her hand? She's hiding something. It started as murmurs, quiet enough to ignore, but the sound grew, layered, sharp-edged, undeniable. Tables leaned closer, phones hovered, recording discreetly behind coffee cups and sunglasses. Marissa heard it, every word. Her lips thinned. She forced a smile, but it collapsed halfway. You're seriously entertaining this circus, she snapped, eyes darting from Bernard to the boy. This is beneath you. But Bernard didn't respond. He wasn't watching her anymore. He was watching everyone else. The way they stared. The way they didn't blink. The way not a single person looked at her the same. Marissa, he said quietly. Where's the bottle? She flinched, just slightly. But enough. There is no bottle, she said too fast. This is insane. Bernard's voice didn't rise. You heard him. He described it. Clear, small, from your purse. Is he wrong? He's a homeless kid, she snapped, stepping back, voice trembling with frustration. He's probably high or hungry or hallucinating. Why are you listening to him? Because he's not the one shaking, Bernard replied. The words landed like a slap. Marissa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. For the first time, her face cracked. Her posture faltered. The mask slipped. She turned toward the crowd, seeking sympathy, maybe an ally. He's trying to ruin my life, she said, voice cracking around the edges. Can't you all see that? But no one moved. No one agreed. Their faces weren't warm or forgiving. They were watching her the way people watch fires start. Silent, uncertain, too far to help, but close enough to feel the heat. Bernard leaned forward slightly, his gaze fixed and surgical. What did you mean earlier? He asked. When you said I wouldn't ruin this for you. Marissa's eyes widened. I didn't say. You did. His voice was calm, but sharper now. You leaned in. You said it. What did you mean? She tried to laugh again, but it came out hollow. You're twisting things, Bernard. This whole situation is insane. He nodded slowly, but his eyes were cold now, analytical. You're right. It is. More phones were up now. More eyes. The patio wasn't just a cafe anymore. It was a courtroom, and every breath Marissa took sounded like a closing argument gone wrong. She took one step back, then another. This isn't happening, she whispered. But it was, and the room had already turned on her. The sirens began faint. Just a distant wail, barely louder than the wind sliding through the cafe's trees. But with each passing second, they grew, closer, sharper, real. Marissa turned toward the sound, her face draining of color. You called the police? She asked, voice brittle. Bernard didn't answer. He didn't have to. A waiter stepped back onto the patio, lips pressed tight. They're here. Gasps rippled across the tables, phones tilted upward. A woman in a silk scarf whispered. They never come this fast unless it's serious. Two uniformed officers entered calmly, but with purpose, scanning the scene before heading straight for Bernard's table. The air thickened. Sir, one officer said, his voice measured. We were told there may have been an attempted poisoning. Bernard nodded, and gestured toward the bowl. This boy claims my wife added something to my food. The officers looked at Malik, then at Marissa, then at the untouched soup still steaming on the table like evidence left behind. Ma'am, the second officer said gently, do you have anything you'd like to say before we proceed? Marissa's jaw tightened, her hands balled into fists at her sides. This is outrageous, she snapped. You're all taking the word of some street rat over me. He's nothing. Nothing. The first officer stepped closer. We need to test the contents. No, she shouted. The word cracked like lightning. All pretense was gone now. Marissa's poise shattered, and from its ruins came something raw and sharp and ugly. I did everything, she screamed. I put up with his routines, his ego, his boring little empire. He wasn't even supposed to make it past this year. I planned everything, and now this little roach ruins it. Silence. Total. Unbreathing. Phones now fully raised. Red record lights blinking. Bernard didn't move. Neither did the officers. Marissa's eyes widened, her lips parted, as if to catch the words and pull them back. But it was too late. The second officer stepped forward, already reaching for his cuffs. Ma'am, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted murder. Please place your hands behind your back. No, no, wait, she cried, stepping backward, bumping into a chair. You don't understand. I was supposed to have more. I deserved more. The first officer gently took her arm. She thrashed once, then again, but the grip held firm. You don't get it, she screamed, as they began to walk her out. He had everything, and left me scraps. No one spoke. No one interrupted. Only the recording lights blinked. Dozens of silent witnesses, Truth. Captured frame by frame. Malik stood motionless, breath shallow, his fists unclenched. And Bernard. He looked at the bowl, then at the empty seat across from him. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel blind. He felt wide awake. The officers guided Marissa through the patio gate, her protests shrill and tangled, echoing off the walls like a broken song no one wanted to hear. Her heels scraped against the stone, her voice rising and falling, until the cruiser door shut, and silence returned like a curtain falling after the final act. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, conversations resumed, quiet, cautious, half-hearted. Silverware touched plates again, coffee cooled, but nothing felt the same. The air held a charge, like everyone knew they'd just witnessed something too real to forget. At the center table, Bernard sat motionless, his hand resting on the edge of the white bowl. He looked older somehow, not in years, but in weight, as if everything he thought he knew had shifted 3 inches to the left. Across the patio, Malik still stood, barely breathing, still on the outside. He turned slightly, ready to slip away. Back to the sidewalk. The alley. The corner near 14th, where he slept behind the bakery. Wait. Bernard's voice cut through the cafe's rustle, like the quietest kind of thunder. Malik stopped, turned. Bernard raised his hand, and pointed to the seat across from him. Sit. The boy hesitated, looked around. Was this a trick? Was someone about to grab his shoulder and tell him to leave? But no one did. So slowly, Malik walked forward, past the gate, past the tables, past the stairs, until he stood at Bernard's table, unsure where to put his hands or eyes. He pulled out the chair, sat stiffly, shoulders tight. Bernard didn't speak for a long moment. He just looked at him, not like people usually did, not like a problem to fix or a stray to ignore. He saw him. You saved my life, Bernard finally said, voice quiet, measured. I don't think I would have seen it. Not from her, not from anyone. Malik shrugged slightly, eyes on the glass of water. I couldn't let it happen. That took guts, Bernard said. Most grown men would have walked away. The boy shifted in his seat. I didn't do it for anything. I don't want money. I believe you, Bernard said, nodding, but I still want to help. Malik looked up, finally meeting his gaze, and for a moment, something cracked open inside him. Something tired, something small and tightly guarded. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing, and that was enough. Bernard sat back, exhaling through his nose. Sometimes, he said, life gives you one good reason to pay attention. Today, it came from a kid in a hoodie. Malik blinked, unsure if that was praise or something else. But Bernard smiled faintly, and for the first time in a long while, Malik didn't feel invisible. He felt invited. Bernard pulled out his phone, the sleek black frame, catching the light as he turned away from the table just slightly. His fingers moved slowly, deliberately, not the way a man calls for revenge, but the way someone dials when it matters. Malik sat still, unsure if he should stay or disappear before anyone changed their mind. His fingers fidgeted with the frayed hem of his sleeve, eyes fixed on a small crack in the stone beneath his feet. He half expected security. A handler, maybe even someone with a clipboard, and too many questions. But when Bernard returned, he said only one thing. Help is on the way. Malik looked up, confused. What kind of help? Bernard's gaze was steady, the kind that doesn't disappear when people stop looking. Malik didn't respond. Couldn't. His throat tightened. The cafe had gone back to its gentle rhythm, waiters gliding, cups clinking, but something had shifted. People glanced over, not with judgment this time, but curiosity, quiet respect. One man even nodded, slow and solemn. Bernard leaned in slightly. You ever sleep indoors, Malik? The boy blinked. Sometimes. When I find a spot. Bernard nodded slowly, then reached into his wallet. Not for cash, for a card, silver trimmed, worn at the edges. She runs a youth shelter on the north end, he said, placing it on the table. Good people. I trust them. They'll keep you safe. Warm. Fed. Malik stared at it, like it might disappear if he blinked too hard. You don't owe me anything, Bernard added, but you changed my life today. Let me help change yours. For the first time, Malik's eyes welled, not from fear or pain, but from something that felt a little like being seen, like maybe the world wasn't always going to look the other way. He nodded, once. "I'll go," he said quietly. Bernard smiled, faint but genuine. "Good." A moment passed between them. No contract, no applause, just two lives that had collided in a moment neither of them saw coming. Across the patio, someone lifted a phone to snap a photo, not of Bernard, not of the soup, of them, the billionaire and the boy. A headline waiting to be written. Malik didn't notice. He was too busy watching Bernard push the untouched bowl aside, like closing the door on something that almost took him. The sun slipped lower behind the trees, casting long shadows across the stone, and in that golden quiet, one truth lingered. Sometimes, it's the voice no one listens to that saves everything. If this story moved you, don't just scroll past. Think about the voices we overlook, the moments we ignore, and the lives that change when someone chooses to see. After, subscribe to Black Roots for more stories that speak truth, awaken empathy, and celebrate quiet courage. And if you believe every voice deserves to be heard, share this. You never know who needs it.